What do I believe?
About what?
Most things.
And we're rolling.
Hi, welcome back to Backsliders, the podcast. I'm Keylee.
I am Micah.
And it's been a minute.
It's been months.
It's been many months.
Who knows what time it is anymore, right?
Yeah. I think we stopped releasing episodes of Backsliders in the summer of 2020. I don't remember.
It was at the beginning of the lockdowns.
Yeah.
We were definitely releasing and we were recording.
And then we reached peak burnout.
Yes.
There overwhelm, depression. There's many words.
There was a couple months there where it was like, oh, well, we've got all this time on our hands. We can just like do Skype podcasts as often as possible. And so we have 8 of those and we just haven't released them, but they're going to come.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that funny? I wonder if other people who are listening or watching can relate. Like sometimes you have all these plans and goals and then you get slapped in the face with some things you didn't plan. And
no, I don't think they can relate.
No, you definitely can relate. I mean, anyone who's alive can relate to that. But then it's surprising.
Unless they weren't making any plans.
Unless you're just the type of person that has no plans and you're just like...
Lucky.
I mean, that sounds relaxing, I guess. It probably comes with its own problems.
It does, I bet.
But, you know, like you have goals and dreams and intentions and maybe a strategy, a plan in what's it called?
Life?
No, like a plan in motion. And then something like it feels what felt like we got hit by a train. I got laid off. The pandemic lockdown officially started in LA. And then, you know, processing collectively a lot of loss and change and grief. And then personally some loss and change and grief. And we couldn't do that much.
I concur.
And now, you know, it's February 1st, 2021, and I finally feel personally like I'm back into therapy. I'm finally feeling like I'm able to process some of the things that have happened recently or over the past year, and it's put me in a better place where I can begin the healing. But, you know, when things like this come at you full force, I think you just survive how you survive. And maybe for self-preservation or just whatever to get through it, you basically what happened just there. Maybe you just like... Freeze.
Yeah. We've been freezing a lot. And then just like jump starting, you know, trying to like get a, I don't know. It's like jumping a dead battery. Sometimes you're just like, all right, well, we're going to kick it into gear. We're going to go hiking every day. We're going to do yoga every day. We're going to, you know, eat well. And then the other thing is like, we're going to get hammered tonight.
And tomorrow night. Maybe. Yeah, man.
There's some ebb and flow, you know? It's like a roller coaster that is happening around you. And then there's the roller coaster that you're like maybe putting yourself on.
Yeah. You know what this whole thing kind of reminded me of? I think I told you this once. I don't know if we were talking to somebody or if we were just talking, but...
What's this whole thing?
The pandemic.
Okay.
Like, first of all, this is a thing that none of us have experienced before, to my knowledge.
No, I don't think so.
But, you know, just like, boom, death is at the forefront of, I think, a lot of our minds. If you're paying any attention to the news, there's a lot of death happening.
Well, we just came out of like a very deathy season of our lives.
That's what I'm saying.
Like my dad had passed away in September, I guess October.
Of 2019.
And so, which was also a very, like, a few months of very low points for me personally. And just trying to swim upstream, you know? I feel like that has been, you know, I feel like an Olympic athlete, not because I've competed, but because I'm just training at swimming upstream. I'm a salmon that is spawning.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's so many parallels through the experience of going through having a loved one have a terminal illness and then death by that terminal illness, and this pandemic, which is just like you become very aware of your own mortality because you're facing other people's. And sometimes if that isn't something that you've been processing or it hasn't been at the forefront of your mind, it can be very challenging to know how to function normally with this presence of, I guess it's really grief, even grief before you lose someone, just like grief of the idea of people being in your life forever or things being as they are forever, grieving that idea of permanence.
Yeah, well, it's change without choice.
Change without consent. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is that. You know, I think a lot of people experience a resistance to change. Some people are better at it, more accepting of it. But it is, life and death is, it's change guaranteed without consent.
Yeah. And I think that, so I really think that the whole like freeze that you and I experienced, not that we froze completely. I mean, we still functioned and like still have a part-time job and still are moving some creative projects forward, but just the pace that we were used to and kind of gearing up to continue just could not happen because there was just too much to process, and to survive, we had to really slow down. It's like we were forced, and we all were, right? Forced to be more still than we had, be more sedentary in the sense of like stay home, like be more isolated. And finally, after a lot of months of that, we're feeling like, oh, okay, we can talk again, or, you know, we can to others, we can.
Well, yeah, I think that we felt to some degree that sense of frozenness, and so it was like, what are we gonna talk about that isn't just wow, isn't just like what do I do next?
Yeah, we're kind of in survival mode.
And I think what's weird is I don't think it's just me, but at the first of the lockdown, it was just like, oh, this is great. Like the world's going to slow down and they're going to get so close to their families and they're going to like appreciate the small moments, and they're going to, and we're going to get more productive because we're going to have all this extra time where we're not commuting and we don't feel obligated to go to everything we're invited to because there's nothing to go to. Maybe that was replaced by like online hangouts, but not necessarily for us. I think that's what encouraged us to do, like figure out Skype podcasting. And we did do that for a while.
Yeah.
And then I think because we felt like, oh, this is going to be super temporary. And it kind of was, but it still lingers in this very alternate world.
What lingers?
Well, there's still like this life isn't normal, nor should it be.
Right.
Which I think that at the start we thought, oh, we'll make these adjustments, we'll whip this back into shape, and we'll be back to some sense of normalcy. These 2-3 months will just like, we'll look back and be like, wow, what an opportunity to thrive and reset. And now it's become like, I don't know if I'm resetting as much as I intended to or as rapidly as I intended to. I think the reset is happening for sure. You can't escape it.
Yeah. But I think there's also a lot of like expectations versus reality in general. We all had expectations of last year to be somewhat of a year that we understood, like many other, normally there's not a global pandemic, which shuts everything down and,
No?
no, and makes people have to change our daily lives in that way, which is why it's similar to like a terminal illness. Like your day-to-day changes, and it's normally very sudden diagnosis, and a whole family relational aspect now has this very heavy thing in your day-to-day lives. But so like, how do you function? I mean, that was really the biggest question that was going around in my head last year, along with like, how long am I going to think about death all the time, constantly, is how do I function in this new reality? How do I maintain my sense of self? What is my sense of self? What do I believe?
About what?
Most things. It's just kind of like, that's what last year, and it still does. I mean, we're, now in the second month of 2021, but it feels like a whirlwind. So much happened collectively. So much happened personally. So much happened to people that I love. And it's just a lot to process. And how do you find normalcy in that? And what is normalcy? For me,
I guess that's strange. It's not normal in the sense of this has been our experience for the last 30 years, but it's normal in the sense that it is reality. It is happening. And I think that kind of this change without consent is like mirrored, like in my experience with losing my dad. You see how people handle that change without consent and how it differs from person to person, and the denial and the bargaining, just the stages of grief that we probably all experience in different varying levels through each of them. And then to kind of like re-see that happening on a global scale all over again, like months later. Maybe I was kind of a little bit numb, or maybe I was a little bit, here we go again. But it did happen again. It did happen again.
Yeah. On many levels too, because it wasn't just it's also like, we're all asked to stay at home and you want to know what's going on. So you're tuning into the news. So you're taking in more realities that you can't deny across the board. That's not just a pandemic. It's also, racial injustice and inequality and like so many things that are so complex and heavy and challenging and upsetting and really, trigger these feelings of being not in control and seeing suffering and not being able to directly do much other than the things you can do at home safely. And so, yeah, just the same theme that kept coming up last year. I think it was just like loss of certainty and grief. So, I mean, long story short, that's why we went on a bit of a pause with the podcast to really be able to figure out how to better take care of ourselves through that, because it felt like a very Right. Like not even a year after losing your dad, like hit, we thought like, cause when somebody has a terminal illness, I am sure some people listening know this experience and can relate. Like it kind of shifts the reality for everybody in the family, and it goes on for many years, and you just kind of, and then we lost your dad. And then it's like, so you're grieving him, but you're also like, okay, but this year we can.
Oh yeah, this was the year to turn it all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it totally was. Yeah. I built up 2020 as like, oh man, because the previous 7 years to some degree were challenging to navigate, because I knew he had cancer for 7 years, and there was a lot of, clearly he lived 7 years with cancer. There was a lot of success in that. But there's always, a shoe to drop, and there's always just a lingering anxiety and concern. And it could be compounded by your loved one's lack of concern or whatever. My dad navigated it how he navigated it, and some of it made me comfortable and some of it made me uncomfortable. But I can't imagine a scenario where he would have just like made me comfortable with his his progression.
Dying.
Yeah, his dying. Yeah. So I don't fault him for even the things that he did or didn't do that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, death is so uncomfortable, especially in our culture, in our society, and even to a point in the religion we were raised in. But more collectively, just like Western culture and American society, like we're so separate from death until you're forced to confront it. You know what I mean? Like it's very challenging because it's like not something, unless you're in a family that talks about death openly or you've experienced it from a young age, it's like not something you have to confront.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you do. And what tools do you have to cope with that? And what I felt like last year is like, I just felt like I didn't have any tools, even though I know I had, you and I have done therapy. We've done a lot of self-work. We've gone to conferences. We've experimented with different ways of learning how to care for ourselves and manage our mental health. And I don't know if it was like for me, maybe I never till last year had slowed down enough to fully process everything that's happened in our lives in the last 7 years, or even process things that happened in my childhood that I didn't necessarily grieve, because you just survive. And this last year being forced to slow down, it's like I felt like I was having to relearn everything, like how to be a person. Not that at this point that we're recording that I've figured it out, but
no, you're done.
But it's just so, to me, I was like so frustrated because I'm like, I thought that I had figured some things out. Like I thought I had some things that I knew. I thought I had some certainty.
No.
And it's like, no, other than like, I'm certain that I have people that I love. And I'm certain that I'm here right now, I think. Sometimes I'm confused about what reality is, but
okay. We got to go to therapy real quick.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying? No, but it's like, I hope that whoever's listening to it, I hope this makes you feel less alone. That's why we started this podcast in the beginning, and in trying to find our energy to revamp it, I've been trying to go back to like, the why. Why did we start this? It's because we wanted to have honest conversations with people about this stuff that's vulnerable and messy and revealing. And because every time someone shares their story of their struggle, we feel a connection to them and feel less alone. So if we can provide an ounce of that to someone, it's worth it. So we're back.
We are back. We're back. We're ready to attack 2021.
We might be a little different, a little more raw.
Little subdued. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna. Yeah, sure, we're different.
No, but I'm saying
Everything
like
changes.
I feel different than I did when we started this. I don't know if you do. You feel the same?
No, I mean I feel different. I just couldn't like put it into words.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, I think that might be a collective thing. Is like just in all of the major events, whether or not, and I'm sure everyone had some major personal events too last year. You know, you feel different. I think what also, I don't want to speak for everyone, but there's a collective loneliness. Like we all maybe feel in different ways more lonely or alone than we have felt because we have been forced to see less people, interact with less people. So, but like how there's this quote by a poet, I believe her name's Rupi Kaur. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but it goes, the irony of loneliness is that we all feel it at the same time. So even though we might all have been shit on this last year and probably were and feel lonely, we're not. And maybe this is strengthening us.
I sure hope so. I hope I'm being forged in a fire.
That's what it feels like, right?
Into a katana sword?
I don't know. What kind of sword was it? Who's a katana?
I think a katana. Anyways, it's a very strong piece of metal.
How do you know that?
It's like a samurai sword. It's
but
like
this is something you learned like when you were a kid. Like, how do you just know what type of a sword, what brand of a sword?
Oh, I think I just like the History Channel or something.
I love Micah's random facts that he knows.
I think a lot of people know this. There's 50% of these people that know.
Cantana?
I'm not even saying it right. This is how little I know about it. Somebody's like, "What an idiot."
No. Well, let us know if you guys know, because I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Like,
this is the least of the things that we're trying to engage with people about.
I know. Okay, so long story short, we're back.
Yeah.
We're going to be releasing, we have about, I think, 8 episodes.
7, I think.
7 that we recorded last year.
During
virtually,
lockdown, yeah.
During lockdown. They're really great conversations. We enjoyed them when we had them, and I'm sure we're going to be reinvigorated by them when we listen to them and put them out there, and hopefully you guys enjoy. And we'll also, we plan on recording new episodes.
Yeah, I think throughout this year we've reconnected with old friends, and I think we're going to have some exciting guests on this year that are going to be some really, really informative and maybe even healing conversations. And
healing.
I hope they're healing. Some of them might be trigger warnings. I don't know.
What does that mean? I don't even know what you're talking about.
I got ideas. I got ideas. And then we want to meet some new people. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in sharing your story about your spiritual evolution. That's kind of why we're here, is this platform of listening to people's stories, where they came from, where they are now, and what that journey has looked like, what they've learned, what they've let go of, what they've held on to. You know, it is kind of, I think a large community that listens is people deconstructing, but what then, you know?
I was surprised to learn that some Christian friends, like people that I knew from when I was growing up in church who listened to the podcast and were very supportive and encouraging. And to me, that kind of like, it made me reflect on myself because I think I just assumed that
they hated you.
Certain people would make judgments about this work, or, you know, even the title is kind of like,
yeah, no, it scared some people.
I don't know, provocative, I guess is the word. But to me, I was like, damn, Keylee, like, don't do the thing that you are hurt by to other people.
Yeah.
Like, don't put people in a box and assume. I mean, that's the point of this show, right? That like people, it's not black or white. People are gray. Our beliefs are gray. Right and wrong is, I don't know, you know, some things are wrong, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
hurting is hurting.
Hurting is
loving is loving.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That's pretty good. Yeah.
But the intention can be confused. I can intend to love you and hurt you.
Right.
That's where it gets gray.
So how can we show more love to people?
Communication and consent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, you had a good answer. It was just kind of like a rhetorical question, but
I've been thinking about that all year.
I mean, being to others what you would like others to be for you.
Yeah.
And I think that me and my therapist, my new therapist who I like, we're talking about this because I feel like I've been able to lately, like this last month, be more compassionate and graceful with myself because I am just like looking at myself through a lens of almost like a child. Because in some sense, we all are still the child versions of ourselves walking around in adult bodies. And for me, like just that exercise makes me be more loving to myself. And if I'm more loving to myself, then by nature, just like instinct, I'm more able to be loving to you because like my baseline of what, I guess energy or what I'm putting my attention on is now love. But if I'm like I was, you know, months ago in a cycle of self-judgment and critique and depression and whatever the cloudiness of just existing can sometimes be where I was not being loving to myself, it felt more challenging to be that to other people. So.
Well, it's like, you know, you've got to let people be who they are and not who you want them to be. And you got to do that for yourself too.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that for yourself, if you're always like, I'm not the person who I want to be, okay, well, be gentle with yourself and let yourself be the person that you are today.
Right.
And if there are changes you want to make, be understanding that takes time.
Yeah. That's been a huge thing for me, and I think it will be. But like enjoying the process and not judging the process.
Yeah.
Like life itself is a process. Working on a project is a process.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're always waiting to be further along or in a different place or whatever, a different title.
Yeah.
For you to enjoy what you're doing, you're just going to keep moving the goalpost. But if you can like open yourself up to, oh, this is it. Like the process is this.
Yeah. It's like, imagine if you wanted to be Miss Universe.
That's a weird example.
Like the strong body competition.
Oh, that's what Miss Universe is?
That's what Mr. Universe is.
Okay, go on.
And you didn't want to go to the gym.
Oh.
You'd be pretty miserable.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to be like Miss Bodybuilder USA and you loved going to the gym, then you're working together with what your goal is. You better love going to the gym if you want to be a bodybuilder is what
Right.
I'm saying.
And don't put that pressure on yourself if you do have a goal that is going to take a lot of work. Don't judge yourself for not being further along
Yeah.
when you're in an earlier stage of the work.
Yeah.
And also, maybe we should try to judge ourselves less and to look at ourselves with love and compassion as we would a child, see where we are, accept where we are, and know that the only thing we're in control of are the choices that we make today. We're no longer in control of whatever we did yesterday, and the future is the future.
The future is the future.
So sometimes I just start talking. I don't know exactly where I'm going, but you know what I mean? Like, all we control are the daily choices that we make, and
they do compound.
Yeah, they compound. And so if you want to be you want your future to look different than your today, start making small choices today that are heading in the direction of that future, but love the process and don't withhold love from yourself just because you're not where you want to be, who you want to be.
Yeah. I will say this is a very like, what's the word? Like a tedious balance, because you want to be empathetic and compassionate with yourself today for whatever trauma you're navigating or pain you're working through. But that can also be part of the daily process to the outcome that you want. Being loving to yourself today may transform into acceptance, may transform into empowerment, may transform into the confidence that you never had.
Yeah. And like,
and I'm speaking from total unexperience.
well, I mean, it's way easier to talk about than it is to actually practice.
Right.
And it's way easier for a lot of us to be more loving and kind to others than we are to ourselves. And maybe that's because of our families or things that happen to us as kids, or this culture of, or like pressure of perfection that might come as a result of the belief system we were raised in. But if we can start to cultivate that love and return to viewing ourselves as human beings ourselves, like we are not perfect, we are flawed, but we just like a plant, plants. Have we talked about this on the podcast before? I don't know, but
I don't know what plants.
They respond like energetically. Like I could speak to my plants over there negatively, and I could speak to my plants over there positively, and we would see on their leaves and,
words,
whether they are thriving or would start to wilt, because our words and what we say out loud and to ourselves do matter, and they do alter the energy.
Yeah, they have an effect on things around.
So let's try to...
There is a mystical world around us.
It's amazing. It's very confusing.
Scientific.
It's mysterious. And so many things are still so uncertain about, we're still discovering so many things about the world, even about our brains. We don't fully understand
I do.
the powers of our brains. This conversation is kind of all over the place, but aren't we all?
All over the place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we were just talking about, where you're talking about, like loving yourself in spite of kind of where you are. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It made me think of the Serenity Prayer from AA, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
Which is really beautiful. And
it is.
I really like that prayer. And in AA, which we've visited and we've been a part of those rooms, they encourage you that, even though the word God is in the prayer, it can be to whoever you want it to be. If you want to say universe, if you want to say whatever. But I think that, you know, if that prayer is accessible to people, it can be like a very helpful mantra, because there's so many things that we can't control. We can't control what happens. What happens to us, what happens to our loved ones, what happens in the world, but we can control
our actions. To
what
as
we
many
decide
degrees as we can.
what we decide to put into the world, how we decide to move, how we decide to speak, how we decide to treat others. We can control that.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a sense of comfort in that. We're not alone. I mean, we'll always have ourselves. So let's try to take better care of ourselves. And we're talking to ourselves, you and me, right now, personally, because we need this message too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like we do this definitely to reinforce good things we've heard. Maybe not good things we do consistently.
I mean...
So join us.
Yeah.
On this evolving,
That's not it.
Evolving journey of living life on this rock planet Earth.
Yeah. Can I, just before we go,
Yeah,
I want to read a couple things that I saved recently that I hope consider this. I guess this intro podcast is us like letting you know we're back, and also
we didn't go anywhere. We did, but
we know so much is happening, and if you're listening right now, we're sending you a lot of love, and I want to read this in hopes that maybe it gives you some encouragement as well. So this is from another poet that I love and follow on Instagram called Young Pueblo. And he wrote 11 unforgettable truths 2020 taught me. Grow without rushing. Accept help from others. Embrace the ups and downs. Letting go is a long-term project. Take your time with big decisions. Throw away the idea of perfection. Gratitude supports a balanced mind. Double down on what you are good at. Stay connected to those who lift you up. Embrace flexibility. Embracing flexibility helps you reach your goals. Say no often. This is how you stay focused. So, I feel like I learned some of those things in 2020, and we'll probably keep learning some of those things for the rest of forever.
Oh.
Right?
Sure.
I mean, that's part of another thing I felt like I was ruminating on in 2020, is that maybe unlearning and relearning, maybe that's all that this is. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you're right.
No, I know, but I don't know is also part of it, you know?
It is.
Saying I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a huge component of faith, even though sometimes it isn't. I think that's when it goes wrong. Anyways.
We will continue talking to you guys. With you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.
We do.
If you would like to show support, there are really easy free ways for you to do that, which is like subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. If you could take 5 minutes to write a review, that's amazing, because it helps us show up more.
Not even 5 minutes.
A
1
minute. Yeah.
45 seconds.
I like this. You could say, I don't know. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
what are they even talking about?
Also, we have a YouTube channel where you can watch these podcasts.
Also, we have supplemental content.
Yeah.
We have like shorts, also titled Backsliders. We have, how many released?
I don't even remember.
5 or 6. And we have, I think, 7 more to release.
Wow.
So
yeah, we have a lot.
We've got a lot of content we got to get out there. We've just been holding on to like it's a precious gem.
But a great way to support us is just to follow us along by subscribing on YouTube and following us on Instagram.
Yeah, reach out too.
we will
and
put
maybe
all of
we'll
that.
do what's that new thing? Clubhouse?
Oh, Clubhouse. We're trying to figure out Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Which is basically like a live radio show. I mean, we could all talk, so
It's cool. It's
we'll
very
start
cool.
a room and we'll invite you guys. But on Instagram, we're at Backsliders Show, and at the Bob Billiams, which is our production company. And we'll put all of this in the the description. And that's our timer. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Backsliders, a podcast. We're back.
Love you guys.
Love you.
No, I'm not saying that it wasn't real. I'm just saying that you made me feel bad. Don't try making me a better deal. I'm done with you and I'm fine with that, and that's that.